3 months had passed since that rainy night when Ethan's life changed forever. The cut on his palm had healed into a pale scar that ran across his lifeline, a permanent reminder of the moment he chose courage over safety. Now, standing in Pete's auto shop with grease under his fingernails and a wrench in his good hand, Ethan barely recognized the scared kid who'd been sleeping in doorways. But tonight, the past was about to come crashing back through the front door of the garage. And this time, he wouldn't face it alone. Here's what you need to know before this gets wild. If you believe that sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, because what happens next will restore your faith in Brotherhood. The afternoon sun filtered through the garage bay doors, casting long shadows across the concrete floor, where Ethan worked on a Chevy Silverado's transmission. His movements were confident now, hands knowing exactly which tool to reach for without looking. Pete had been a patient teacher, showing him that machines were honest. They broke down in predictable ways and fixed up the same. Not like people. Not like fathers who smiled one minute and swung fists the next. "Looking good, kid," Pete called from across the shop, wiping his hands on a red rag that hung from his belt. "You got a natural touch with engines. Another 6 months, you'll be running your own bay." Ethan felt warmth spread through his chest at the praise. In the 3 months since Ironhead and the Hells Angels had taken him in, he'd learned more about being a man than he'd learned in 16 years with his father. Real men protected people weaker than themselves. Real men kept their word. Real men didn't solve problems with their fists unless absolutely necessary. And even then, they made sure it counted. The shop's bell chimed as the front door opened. Ethan glanced up expecting a customer, but his hands froze on the wrench when he saw who walked in. His little sister Emma stood in the doorway, 13 years old, but looking smaller somehow, wearing a hoodie 2 sizes too big and carrying a backpack that seemed to hold everything she owned. Her left eye was swollen shut, purple and yellow bruises spreading across her cheek like a storm cloud. Her lip was split, barely healed, and the way she held her ribs told Ethan she was hurt there too. "Emma." The wrench clattered to the concrete floor, the sound echoing through the suddenly silent garage. Ethan was moving before he realized it, crossing the distance between them in seconds. "Oh God, Emma, what did he do to you?" She collapsed into his arms, and he felt how thin she'd gotten, bones sharp through the hoodie. She was shaking, her whole body trembling like a leaf in a storm. "He got worse after you left," she whispered against his shoulder. "So much worse, Ethan. When he drinks now, he doesn't just yell anymore. Last night, I told him I wanted to live with you. And he—" Her voice broke into sobs that shook them both. Pete appeared beside them, his face hardening as he took in Emma's injuries. "Let's get her inside. She needs food, rest, and we need to call Ironhead." "No." Emma pulled back, panic flashing in her good eye. "Please don't call anyone. Dad will find me. He always finds me. He said if I ever ran away like you did, he'd make me sorry. He said he'd kill me, Ethan. He meant it. I saw it in his eyes." Ethan's vision tunneled, rage making his hands shake as he gently guided Emma toward the stairs that led to his apartment above the garage. "He's never touching you again. I promise you that." Pete was already pulling out his phone. "Kid's right that we need help, but we're doing this smart. Your old man comes here. He's going to find more than he bargained for." He pressed a number, waited. "Ironhead, it's Pete. We got a situation. Ethan's little sister just showed up. She's hurt bad. Looks like domestic violence. And she says her father's looking for her." "Yeah, I figured you'd say that. Bring everyone." Upstairs in Ethan's small apartment, Emma sat on the couch that Ironhead had bought him last month. She looked so small, so breakable, surrounded by the simple furniture that had made this place feel like home. Ethan heated up leftover pizza while Pete grabbed a first aid kit, his movements gentle as he checked Emma's injuries with practiced efficiency that suggested he'd seen this kind of damage before. "Ribs aren't broken, just bruised," Pete said quietly, his jaw tight with barely controlled anger. "The eye will heal. The split lip too. But Emma, sweetheart, we need to document this. Take pictures. Get you to a hospital for official records. When your dad shows up, and we need evidence that stands up in court. I don't want to press charges, Emma said, her voice small. I just want to stay with Ethan. Can I just stay here? Ethan knelt in front of her, taking her hands in his. I want that more than anything. But Pete's right. We do this legal, or Dad can force you to come back. We need to make sure he never gets that chance. The rumble of motorcycles announced the arrival of the Hells Angels before they even turned onto the street. Emma's good eye went wide as she looked out the window and saw them. Dozens of bikes pulling up to the garage, their riders dismounting with military precision. Ethan, what did you do? Are those gang members? They're family, Ethan said simply, and they're going to help us make sure you're safe. Ironhead took the stairs 2 at a time, his massive frame filling the doorway as he entered. Behind him came 6 more bikers, men Ethan had come to know well over the past months. Razor, the club's enforcer with a scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. Ace, the youngest member who taught Ethan how to throw a proper punch. Grizz, whose gray beard and gentle eyes made kids trust him instantly. Steel, Torch, and Viper, each one a wall of muscle and loyalty. But it was Sarah who pushed past her father and went straight to Emma, sitting beside her on the couch with the kind of understanding that only came from shared experience. I know you're scared, Sarah said softly, taking Emma's hand. I was too, when that man came after me with a knife. But these guys, they don't let bad things happen to people they protect. And if your brother's family, that makes you family too. Ironhead knelt down, so he was at Emma's eye level, his huge hands surprisingly gentle as he examined her bruises without touching them. Emma, I'm Mike. People call me Ironhead. Your brother saved my daughter's life 3 months ago. That makes him one of us, and it makes you one of us too. Now, I need you to tell me everything. Where's your father? Does he know where Ethan is? Emma's voice shook as she spoke. He found Ethan's phone number in my backpack last week. He's been calling it, leaving messages, saying he knows Ethan's in Bakersfield, that he's coming to bring us both home. Dad took off work today. He said he was driving here. That was this morning. He should be here any minute. As if summoned by her words, a car's tires screeched outside. Through the window, Ethan saw a rust-covered Ford pickup truck slam to a stop in front of the garage, blocking the driveway. His father emerged from the driver's side, and Ethan felt ice flood his veins. Derek Mitchell looked exactly how Ethan remembered, tall and wiry, with mean eyes and hands that hung at his sides like weapons waiting to be drawn. But he looked worse now, too. Thinner, with a wild edge that suggested he'd been drinking or worse on the drive here. Ethan, Derek's voice boomed across the parking lot. I know you're in there. You and your sister get out here right now, or I'm calling the police. You can't kidnap my daughter. Ironhead stood, his expression going cold in a way that made even Ethan take a step back. Kid stays here. Emma stays here. We go handle your father. He's dangerous, Ethan said quickly. When he gets like this, so are we, Razor said quietly, cracking his knuckles. Difference is, we only hurt people who deserve it. They descended the stairs like an army. 18 Hells Angels bikers filing out of the garage to form a semicircle around Derek Mitchell's truck. Ethan stayed by the window with Emma, watching as his father's confidence visibly wavered when he saw the wall of leather and muscle facing him. Where's my son? Derek demanded, but his voice had lost some of its edge. Where's Emma? You can't keep them from me. I'm their father. I got rights. Ironhead stepped forward, and even from the second-floor window, Ethan could see his father shrink back slightly. Mr. Mitchell, I'm Mike Reeves. Your son works for my brother. Your daughter just arrived here with a black eye, split lip, and bruised ribs. You want to explain that? She's clumsy, Derek said quickly. Always been accident-prone. And my son's a runaway. I'm here to bring them home where they belong. Accident-prone, Ironhead repeated, his voice dangerously soft. That's interesting, because I'm looking at a man with skinned knuckles and what looks like blood under his fingernails. Want to tell me how you got those injuries, Mr. Mitchell? Derek's hands clenched into fists. None of your business. You're harboring a minor and interfering with custody. I'll have you all arrested. That's when Pete walked out of the garage, holding his phone up so Derek could see the screen. Funny thing about the modern age, Mr. Mitchell. Phones have cameras now, and I've been recording this whole conversation. I've also got pictures of your daughter's injuries, time-stamped and dated. along with a statement from Ethan about years of abuse. And I've already emailed everything to Child Protective Services, the police, and a lawyer who specializes in domestic violence cases. Derek's face went red, then purple. You have no right. We have every right, Ironhead interrupted. Every right to protect kids from men who use them as punching bags. Now, you got two choices here. You can get back in that truck, drive home, and wait for CPS to contact you about custody arrangements. Or you can try something stupid and find out what happens when you threaten family in front of 18 Hells Angels. For a moment, Derek looked like he might actually try something. His hands twitched, his body coiling like a spring about to snap. Ethan held his breath. Emma pressed against his side, both of them frozen as they watched their father calculate odds he couldn't possibly win. "This isn't over," Derek finally said, backing toward his truck. "Those are my kids. Mine. No judge is going to side with bikers and grease monkeys over a father." "We'll see about that," Pete said calmly. "The lawyer I mentioned? She's real good at her job. Helped 3 other kids get away from abusive parents this year alone. She's excited to meet Emma and Ethan." Derek slammed his truck door and peeled out, leaving rubber on the pavement as he fled. But everyone knew it wasn't really over. Men like Derek Mitchell didn't give up that easily. They waited. They planned. They came back when you least expected it. 2 days later, Emma sat in a child psychologist's office, recounting years of abuse to a kind woman with gray hair and gentle questions. Ethan sat in the waiting room with Sarah, both of them silent as they listened to Emma's muffled voice through the door, telling truths that had been buried too long. "She's brave," Sarah said quietly. "Braver than I was. When that man came after me with a knife, I froze. You had to save me. But Emma, she saved herself. Ran away, found you, told the truth. That's real courage." Ethan stared at his scarred palm, remembering the knife, the fear, the split-second decision that had changed everything. "I was so scared that night. I almost didn't do anything." "But you did," Sarah pointed out. "That's what matters. Not whether you were scared, but that you acted anyway." The court hearing happened faster than Ethan expected. The lawyer Pete had hired, a fierce woman named Margaret Shun who stood barely 5 feet tall, but argued like a giant, presented evidence that made the judge's face darken with each exhibit. Photos of Emma's bruises, medical records from both children showing a pattern of injuries over years. Ethan's testimony about the night he ran away. Statements from neighbors who'd heard fighting, screaming, things breaking. Derek Mitchell sat at the defendant's table with a court-appointed lawyer who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Derek had cleaned up for court, wearing a button-down shirt and slacks, his hair combed back, his face arranged in an expression of wounded innocence. But when he took the stand and Ms. Chun began questioning him, that mask cracked quickly. "Mr. Mitchell, can you explain the hospital visit Emma made 3 years ago for a broken wrist? She fell off her bike. And the visit 6 months before that for bruised ribs? Fell down the stairs. And the visit 2 years before that for a concussion. Kids are clumsy." Ms. Chin pulled out a folder thick with papers. "Mr. Mitchell, I have medical records here spanning 8 years. 19 emergency room visits between your 2 children. Broken bones, concussions, burns, cuts requiring stitches. The doctors noted their concerns in the records. Injuries inconsistent with the explanations given. Defensive wounds. Signs of long-term abuse. Would you like to revise your testimony about how clumsy your children are?" The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm going to ask you directly. Did you physically abuse your children?" Derek's jaw worked, his hands gripping the witness stand so hard his knuckles went white. In the gallery behind him, Ironhead and a dozen Hells Angels sat silently, their presence a reminder of who stood behind Ethan and Emma now. "I disciplined them when they needed it. That's not abuse. That's parenting." "Discipline," the judge repeated, her voice flat. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm looking at photos of a 13-year-old girl with a black eye, split lip, and bruised ribs. What exactly did she do that required this level of discipline?" Derek's mask shattered completely. "She said she wanted to leave, said she wanted to live with her brother, that I wasn't a good father. I worked 2 jobs to put food on that table, kept a roof over their heads, and they're both ungrateful little. He caught himself, but too late. The judge's gavel came down like thunder. I've heard enough. I'm granting immediate temporary custody of Emma Mitchell to her brother Ethan Mitchell, with Mr. Pete Reeves acting as guardian until Ethan reaches legal age. Mr. Derek Mitchell, you are to have no contact with either child. A restraining order is being issued. If you violate it, you will be arrested. This court is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, Emma threw her arms around Ethan, crying so hard she shook. We're really free? He can't take us back. Never. Ethan promised, holding her tight. You're safe now. We both are. But that night, as Ethan lay awake in his apartment with Emma asleep in the bedroom he'd given her, he couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't really over. His father's face kept appearing in his mind, twisted with rage, promising that this wasn't finished. He was right to worry. 3 nights later, Ethan woke to the sound of breaking glass. He bolted upright, heart hammering, as flames suddenly illuminated the window. Someone had thrown a Molotov cocktail through the garage's front window, and fire was spreading fast across the oil-stained floor. Emma! Ethan screamed, running to her room. She was already awake, coughing as smoke began seeping under the door. He grabbed her hand, and they ran for the stairs, but stopped dead when they saw the flames blocking the ground floor exit. The back window, Ethan gasped, dragging Emma toward the bathroom at the rear of the apartment. They could hear sirens in the distance, but they'd never arrive in time. The fire was spreading too fast, feeding on chemicals and paint and everything flammable Pete stored in the garage. Ethan kicked out the bathroom window screen and looked down. 2 stories up, no fire escape, just a straight drop to the alley below. He could hear someone laughing outside, his father's voice carrying through the night. Burn, you ungrateful brats. See how you like living without a roof over your heads now. But then another sound rose above the laughter and the flames. The unmistakable rumble of motorcycles, dozens of them, converging on the garage from every direction. The Hell's Angels had arrived. Ethan saw them through the smoke, Ironhead and his brothers pouring into the alley. Razor and Ace positioned themselves beneath the bathroom window, arms raised. Jump, they shouted up. We got you. Emma went first, Ethan pushing her out the window despite her terrified screaming. She fell, and the bikers caught her like she weighed nothing, passing her safely to waiting arms. Then Ethan jumped, landing hard in Grizz's grip, the impact knocking the air from his lungs, but leaving him uninjured. Fire trucks arrived, sirens wailing, as firefighters battled the blaze. Police cars blocked off the street, and in the chaos, Derek Mitchell tried to slip away. He made it 3 steps before Ironhead's massive hand clammed down on his shoulder. Going somewhere? Ironhead's voice was cold as winter, because I'm pretty sure attempted murder carries a significant prison sentence. Derek tried to fight, throwing wild punches that Ironhead blocked easily. Within seconds, Derek was face down on the pavement, Ironhead's knee in his back, waiting for the police to arrive. You can't prove anything, Derek snarled. No witnesses. No evidence. Pete emerged from across the street, holding up his phone. Actually, I've got you on camera. Threw the Molotov cocktail, stood here laughing while you watched the building burn. Even said, and I quote, "Burn, you ungrateful brats." That's attempted murder, arson, violation of a restraining order, and about 6 other charges I'm probably forgetting. Derek's face went white as officers pulled him to his feet and read him his rights. He looked at Ethan and Emma, standing safely surrounded by bikers, and for just a moment, something like regret flickered across his face. But then it hardened back into rage. You're still my kids, he spat as they loaded him into the patrol car. That doesn't change. No, Ethan called back, his voice steady and strong. We were never really your kids. We were just your victims. But we're not victims anymore. The patrol car drove away, and Ethan knew with certainty that this time, it really was over. His father would spend years in prison. By the time he got out, Ethan would be an adult, Emma would be grown, and they'd both be so far beyond his reach he'd never touch them again. The garage was destroyed, but Pete just shrugged when he saw the damage. Insurance will cover it. We'll rebuild. And this time, we'll add a proper fire escape. He looked at Ethan and Emma. You two are staying with me until we get you a better place. No arguments. 6 months later, Ethan stood in a brand new garage, twice the size of the old one, with Pete's auto shop painted in bold letters across the front. Emma helped in the office after school, doing bookwork and greeting customers with a smile that came easier every day. The black eye had healed months ago, leaving no physical scars, though Ethan knew the emotional ones would take longer. His father was serving 12 years for attempted murder and arson. The restraining order was permanent, and Ethan had officially been granted guardianship of Emma when he turned 18 last month, with Pete remaining as co-guardian until Emma aged out. On the wall of a new garage hung a photo in a frame. 18 Hell's Angels surrounding Ethan and Emma, all of them grinning at the camera. Beneath it, a plaque read, "Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up when you need them most." Sarah visited every weekend, teaching Emma how to ride a dirt bike in the empty lot behind the garage. Ironhead stopped by to check on them, bringing gifts and terrible dad jokes that made Emma roll her eyes but smile anyway. The bikers had become uncles, protectors, family in every way that mattered. One evening, as Ethan locked up the garage, Emma came to stand beside him. She was taller now, healthier, the scared girl who'd shown up with a black eye replaced by someone stronger. "You know what I realized?" she said quietly. "That night you saved Sarah when you got stabbed protecting a stranger, that wasn't just courage. That was you showing me what kind of man you become. Different for Dad. Better." Ethan put his arm around her shoulders. "We both became different. Better. Together." They walked upstairs to their apartment above the shop, the space that had been rebuilt with love and care by people who understood what it meant to create safety where there had been none before. Emma had her own room now, painted purple because that was her favorite color. Ethan had his space, with tools he'd bought himself, and a bed he'd never have to leave because someone was screaming downstairs. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to remember that escape is possible, that family can be chosen, and that sometimes the scariest-looking people turn out to be the safest. Hit that subscribe button if you believe in second chances and the power of brotherhood. Drop a comment about a time someone showed up for you when you needed them most, because stories like Ethan and Emma's remind us that we're never truly alone as long as we're brave enough to ask for help.